Welcome everyone back to weekly weather updates, and in today's video we're going to have a look at the latest from the live radar. We'll run through the UKV, have a look at the precipitation and temperature over the next 5 days, as we've got a much more uneventful next 5 days. No extreme heat, no major thunderstorms at all. Going to be much more towards average in terms of temperatures, and we're going to be seeing precipitation quite widely as well. Nothing too much, but nothing bone dry either. We'll then have a look at the various longer range models, looking at the GFS, GEM, ECMWF, and the Ensembles. Have a look at what's been happening over the next couple of weeks as we head towards the end of meteorological summer, and of course the end of August. And it is likely that perhaps in the last week of August, including that bank holiday weekend, we could be seeing things hot up once again. Now, I don't think there'll be any extreme heat, nothing mid to high 30s, but I think it's highly likely we could see temperatures get above average, if not into the high 20s perhaps, maybe even low 30s in some areas in the south and the east. So we could be seeing a return to some heat. It doesn't look like an absolute bone dry sort of pattern yet, so it could also allow for the development of heavy showers and storms as well. So although we're in a bit of a lull at the moment, there's nothing too eventful going on, which I think a lot of people will enjoy. It could turn a little bit more eventful in the last week of August with some heat returning and some thunderstorms as well. So do remember, if you enjoy my videos, make sure to like and subscribe, and remember to follow me on Twitter as well. The link's in the description. So do look at the live radar. You can see it's a much more mundane picture today than it has been over the last couple of days. We have had severe thunderstorms breaking out in many areas, with a weather front approaching in from the Atlantic as we are generally going into a more of a westerly flow. Now this weather front is sort of patchy along western parts of the United Kingdom at the moment, and it is sort of breaking apart, but it is giving some moderate precipitation into the northwest of England, through parts of Wales, into the far southwest of England, and behind it there are some heavy showers, some torrential showers within these as well, in parts of Ireland and North Ireland as well, but they are quite scattered and aren't going to cause too many issues. It's a pretty mundane picture, and elsewhere it is pretty dry, some patchy clouds around, but still plenty of sunshine, and those temperatures are rising to around average, maybe slightly above average in a few spots. If we do put on those temperatures, as of around 3:30, peak temperatures of the day, you can see ahead of that weather front in the east and the south, those temperatures are getting into the low to mid 20s, 25, 26 degrees being seen at the moment, and that's going to see the continued pattern over the next sort of 5 days or so. There's going to be some days where we do see these temperatures get to around that 25 degree mark, which is slightly above average, maybe by a couple degrees, but most areas will be around the average of low 20s, high teens, especially further north as the west was closer to the Atlantic influence, which is going to be inevitably pulling in slightly cooler air. But a much drier day for many, no torrential downpours today, and quite a bit cooler than we have had recently, with those temperatures, as I said, in the high teens, low 20s for many, peaking in the mid 20s. So do go over to the UKV and have a look at the precipitation and the temperature over the next 5 days. So if we do start on the precipitation, you can see this afternoon those weather fronts heading in from the west. A few showers earlier in the far east, but they didn't really do too much. The precipitation is going to move eastwards overnight, maybe pep up in a few places, and should clear the southeast corner by around rush hour tomorrow morning. There's going to be some showers in the north and the west, some heavy, potentially some isolated thunder in there, but I'm not thinking too much of them, and they are moving quite quickly on that westerly flow. And as we head through Friday evening, you can see those showers still remain, but many areas still pretty dry. Another weather front approaching for the early hours of Saturday, a cold front sweeping in there. You can see that because we've got some line convection along the weather front there, so very heavy, potentially thundery rain right along the cold air and warm air boundary. So this could cause some issues as it does sweep through temporarily, but normally will move through quite quickly. So could dump quite a lot of rain in a short period of time, but it will sweep through quite quickly, giving some vicious conditions perhaps for 10 or 15 minutes. So we'll have to keep an eye on that for Saturday morning, but it does sweep through quite quickly. And eventually, by Saturday afternoon, there are showers around, and that weather front does disintegrate a little bit through northern England, just being some cloud and some patchy showers elsewhere. Sunday looks like another reasonably dry day, still some showers around for some, some patchy cloud, maybe some thicker cloud in areas, but still not too bad of a day. And into Monday, it does look like a deluge will be coming in. Some proper heavy precipitation with a southerly tracking low. You can see that because this precipitation band is much further southwards than any low pressure system has been in the past few months. And you can see it does give an absolute deluge through Monday morning for eventually clearing, and Monday afternoon might be a little bit of a better afternoon. Yes, some showers and storms may be there through the East Midlands, but nothing too crazy, and generally just a lot drier through the afternoon into the evening. So if we do have a look at the max temperatures from the UKV, we run through to this afternoon. You can see those temperatures rising to around 24 to 26 degrees in the east and the south, but widely high teens, low 20s. As we run through to Friday, you can see those temperatures once again rising into the low 20s, maybe even mid 20s for some in the Far East, 25, 26. And you could even rule out a 27 degree there, but widely still high teens, low 20s, in around average for this time of year. And as we head into Saturday, you can see those temperatures rising once again back into the low 20s, widely 20 to 24 degrees ahead of the cold front, but behind it high teens or even mid-teens most likely. And into Sunday, still perhaps 23 or 24 degrees there in the east, and widely high teens, low 20s. And into Monday, not expecting too great conditions overnight, of course, with that heavy precipitation, but by the afternoon, where the sunshine does come out, could get to maybe 24 or 25 degrees in the south, but where we have showers lingering, probably mid to high teens. So, if we do now go onto the GFS and have a look what that is showing over the next couple of weeks, as I said, unsettled and cooler the next sort of 5 days or so, but then it will turn potentially more drier and potentially a lot hotter to end the month. So you can see at the moment we've got that big low pressure just centred towards Iceland, and that's moving in those westerly winds, slightly cooler air, and eventually does push weather fronts through the weekend, pushing us back into more unsettled flow. And you can see by Monday that southerly tracking low pushing in just across the south, giving us more unsettled conditions, and eventually we just generally stay unsettled. However, around a week's time, high pressure builds back in, and you can see those low pressure systems are migrating back towards Greenland and Iceland. High pressure controlling us with an easterly flow, warm, hot conditions coming in from the near continent. Now we are seeing an interesting thing here from the GFS, a bit of an upper trough there. Now that within the hotter air would potentially give a thunderstorm risk within warm, hot days. So that is something we do need to keep an eye on. Again, it's a very small isolated feature and it won't be on all the runs, but it is something we do need to keep an eye on, because although the general pattern is dry and warm, if not hot, maybe even heatwave conditions, that would definitely produce cloud, showers and thunderstorms. That is something we need to keep an eye on, and it does continue just to mill in the southeast, and we just stay under high pressure though elsewhere, and it generally stays very warm and very dry. So do run it back right to the start and have a look at the upper air temperatures. You can see warm, the upper air conditions right in the southeast at the moment, but cooler, fresher Atlantic air is going to dominate over the next few days before warmer air could come in again ahead of weather fronts, but nothing particularly sustained. It's, as I said, in a week's time, hot air starts to develop in our south again. The 15-degree isotherm, that could give temperatures, as I said, in the high 20s, maybe even low 30s in around 8 days' time. And we just stay under the high pressure, pulling in a bit of an easterly flow. Definitely in the south could be warm, but you can see that pocket of slightly cooler air there. That's the upper trough, and that would give some instability, some thunderstorm risk as well. So we have to really keep an eye on that. And beyond that, we do remain dry generally, other than that little upper trough, and warm with those upper air temperatures in around that 10 to 15 degree mark, at least initially, before cooling down with more of an easterly flow. If we do run it back again to around next Thursday and have a look at those 2 meter temperatures. So if we do pull those up, have a look at those 2 meter temperatures, and we go to the United Kingdom look, you can see around next Thursday afternoon, getting into the high 20s, low 30s, as I said, 29 to 31 degrees there in the south. So warm, hot heat wave conditions. If we move to the 26th, into the bank holiday weekend, still widely 27, 29, but with the upper trough, you can see it's slightly cooler. Similarly, into Saturday, we do see again widely 28 to 31 degrees in the south, and widely low to mid 20s. So very warm and hot for that bank holiday weekend, and into the Sunday as well. Slightly cooler as we do start to move that upper trough around, bring more mixing of the air. If we do actually have a look at the pressure charts there, you'll be able to see that upper trough really digging in, and that's going to produce showers and thunderstorms, cooling down things on Sunday. And for Monday, similar conditions under that upper trough, mid-teens, but along the far south coast, mid-20s. So the general scheme of this GFS run is very warm, hot, but that upper trough has just put a bit of a spanner in the works for the temperatures and the precipitation at this sort of mid-range. So we'll have to see exactly what happens with that. But at the moment, it's a little bit of a spanner in the works there if you are hoping for completely bone-dry conditions through that bank holiday weekend and that warmth sustaining. Definitely does look like it will be there initially, maybe 3 or 4 days of high 20s, low 30s. But this little low-pressure system in the upper levels of the atmosphere could just reduce those temperatures, but we'll have to compare it to the other models and the ensembles and see what they're showing as well. So if we do run onto the GM and see how that does compare over the next 10 days, again, low pressure running in at the moment, generally an unsettled flow with low pressure just milling around, but that low pressure eventually migrates back towards Iceland and Greenland, and we go under higher pressure around day 10. You look at the upper air temperatures, warmer areas wafting up, not quite as hot for that bank holiday weekend as the GFS run, but it is slightly drier with that upper trough not existing at all here. So we have to really take that into account. And if we go into the 2 meter temperatures, you can see that through Saturday afternoon, we can't fully see it, but it would be low to mid 20s, and through Friday afternoon, again, low to mid 20s as well once we get that 3 p.m. peak. So GM not too hot today, definitely more on the cooler end, but we'll have to look at the ensemble members and you can see that probably about 2/3 are warmer than average, some even going towards heat wave levels. Still uncertainty though, just the hints at this stage of that warmer, hotter pattern. So, if we do go on to the ECMWF, see how that does compare. Again, low pressure running in off the Atlantic and generally staying in control, just moving in repeated bouts of precipitation. Eventually, high pressure does build in. Now, at day 10, that flow is in from the north, so it's not a particularly warm flow, but it would be dry, and that hot air mass is just to our southeast in around a week's time. So you can see there is a lot of uncertainty from these runs about exactly what is going to happen. All 3 models having slightly different scenarios. GFS, hotter and drier initially, before turning more unsettled and thundery. The GM just generally being drier, but slightly cooler, and the ECMWF being generally dry, but a lot chillier with that northerly flow. Look at that temperature deviation. Much colder air moving into the north with proper northerly wind, but being end of August, that air mass isn't particularly cold at all. So if you look at the ensembles, you can see why the general idea is warmer, drier theme. You can see it's around average at the moment and will continue to be around average for the next 5 days with some precipitation here or there, especially into the weekend and Monday. Then we see those temperatures rise in around a week's time to around 12, 13, 14 degrees at 850 HPA. And you can see how the operational run there is among a cluster, perhaps a quarter of the ensemble members, getting around that mid-teens, maybe high teens, sustained upper air conditions. And that would, as I said, give temperatures in the mid to high 20s, low 30s. But the majority of ensemble members are above average for this time of year, so mid-20s looks highly probable. So warmer, drier, maybe even hotter. Some precipitation around, but nothing crazy, so still a drying trend, or a dryish trend, but still showers are there, and of course with that upper trough from the GFS, and those things we still have to take into account, and they're not going to be resolved until it's within the 7-day time frame at least. But generally, it is warmer than average and looking pretty decent. If you do run over and have a look at the 2 meter temperatures from that as well, you can see quite a few of the ensemble members are above that 25-degree mark, and you can see around that 20th of August into the first few days of September, there is big uncertainty. Some getting into the mid to high 20s, others back down into the high teens or even mid-teens. So there is big uncertainty with it, but I'd say the majority are above average at this stage, warm, quite a few are reasonably dry, and some are even quite hot. And if you do finish by having a look at the ECMWF Ensembles, the midnight run, very similar pattern. Around average, up and down over the next 5 days, and turning above average in around 6-7 days' time, and staying well above average, potentially even 5 degrees above average, staying very warm, if not quite hot. So you can see the ECMWF Operational Run there is on the cooler side of the mean of the ensemble members. There are still quite a few there, maybe 5 or 10 below average, but the majority are well above average around that 10 to 15 degree mark at 850 HPA. Precipitation isn't completely gone, but it isn't crazy high, so uncertainty with exact positioning of low pressures, stuff like that, but it generally does look like a warm air mass, at least in the south, is going to be dominating for the last week of August. Could get very dry and very warm, if not hot weather, and you compare that at the 2-meter temperatures, you can see around that 24th to 28th of August mark, you can see some runs getting into the mid to high 20s, even into the 30-degree range. Now, one thing we have to remember is it's the end of August, coming into the start of September. So getting those very warm, hot conditions does need a warmer air mass. 15 degrees at 850 HPA back in mid-July can give us low to mid-30s, or even a week or two ago gives us mid to low 30s. But coming into the last week of August, 15 degrees at 850 HPA probably will only scrape us into the low 30s, and sort of a 10-degree air mass, which would give us mid to high 20s maybe on a good warm dry day, maybe only low 20s, maybe mid-20s peaking. So we have to start to take off a couple of degrees as we are veering to the end of summer. So even though these upper air temperatures do look very warm, we always have to take that and start to adjust those temperatures slightly down for the 2-meter estimates, just because we are starting to head towards the period where the sun is reducing in strength quite rapidly now, and we start to head into meteorological autumn. And can you believe it? Probably in about a month or two time, we'll be starting to have a look at the winter and seeing what's coming up with that. And by the end of October into start of November, that's when we can probably start seeing our first sort of real cold charts appearing for the end of November. So we'll just have to see exactly how it does play out over the next couple of weeks, but it does still look like there could be legs in some warmer, drier, maybe even hotter weather towards the end of the month. So do stay tuned and do keep up to date. But at the time being, it's much more mundane conditions over the next 3 or 4 days. Temperatures around or slightly above average for some, maybe slightly below average in the north and west. Precipitation around for some, but not crazy high. So yeah, just generally back towards more average sort of conditions. So I hope if you have not enjoyed the hot weather we have had recently and the thunderstorms we have, this weather is much more your cup of tea. So as I said, thanks for watching, hope you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you again for another video soon.